The wind came down off the mesas like a breath from a furnace, carrying dust that stung the eyes and tasted of alkali. It moved through the streets of dry wells in slow, deliberate gusts, lifting skirts of grit and setting the loose boards of the boardwalk to creaking. Noon had passed, but the sun still sat high and pitiless, flattening the town beneath it. The buildings leaned into the heat as if tired of standing. Eli Mercer reined his horse at the edge of town and sat there a moment, watching. He had a way of arriving quiet, as though the land itself had brought him and then forgotten him again. He wore a hat the color of old smoke and a coat patched so carefully the patches were hard to see. His face was long and spare, cut by a scar that ran from the corner of his mouth toward his ear, pale as river stone. He had the look of a man who listened more than he spoke. A bell clanged once somewhere down the street. Laughter followed, sharp and sudden, then died. Eli nudged the horse forward. Hooves rang hollow on the hard-packed earth, then dulled as he reached the boardwalk. He tied up outside the general store, slipping the reins through a post worn smooth by years of the same motion, and stepped down. Inside, the store smelled of coffee beans and leather and the faint sour of sweat. The clerk, a thin man with ink-stained fingers, glanced up and then away again. Eli took his time, selecting a sack of beans, a coil of rope, a packet of nails. He paid in coins worn nearly blank. "You passin' through?" the clerk asked, mostly to fill the silence. Eli nodded. "For a bit." The clerk hesitated. "Sheriff's been asking after strangers." Eli met his eyes, calm. "I ain't hard to find." Outside, the wind had shifted. From the far end of the street came the sound of voices raised, not in anger, not quite in laughter either, but something brittle in between. Eli turned. A small crowd had gathered in front of the livery, men mostly, hats tipped back, hands on hips. At the center stood Sheriff Halcomb. Halcomb was thick through the chest and neck, his badge catching the sun like a blade. He had a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Beside him, a woman stood with her hands bound in front of her. She wore a dress once blue, now faded to the color of the sky just before rain. Her hair hung loose, dark and dusty. There was blood at her lip. Eli watched without moving. "Mine," a voice said from the crowd. A man stepped forward, tall and red-faced, his vest straining at the buttons. "Bought and paid for." Halcomb raised a hand. "Easy, Clary. Ain't nobody stealing from you, just sorting things proper." The woman said nothing. Her eyes were fixed on the ground. Halcomb turned her chin up with 2 fingers. "You see, miss, a man's got rights. Town's got rules. You broke 'em." "She didn't." Her voice was hoarse but steady. A murmur rippled through the men. Halcomb chuckled. "That's so? You ran from your contract. That's theft." Eli stepped off the boardwalk. The boards creaked behind him, but no one turned. He stopped a few paces from the edge of the crowd. "What's her name?" he asked. The sound of his voice cut the air like a dropped plate. Heads turned. Halcomb's eyes narrowed. "That ain't any of your concern," the sheriff said. Eli shrugged. "Seems like it might be." Clary spat. "Another drifter looking for trouble." Halcomb studied Eli, taking in the coat, the horse, the quiet. "Name's Mercy," the woman said suddenly. She lifted her head. Her eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds held back. "Mercy Calder." Halcomb's smile thinned. "That ain't necessary." Eli nodded once, as if filing the name away. "She belongs to me," Clary said again, louder this time. "Bought and paid for in El Paso. Got papers." "Papers can burn," Eli said. The crowd went still. Halcomb's hand dropped to his gun. "You best move along." Eli didn't. He looked at Mercy. "You want to go with him?" She swallowed. "No." That single word seemed to echo. Halcom laughed, sharp. Hear that? Ain't how this works. Eli's gaze didn't leave her. You got kin? She shook her head. They're dead. Something passed across Eli's face then, quick as a shadow. Halcom stepped closer. You stirring up trouble, cowboy. Eli met his eyes. Looks like trouble's already here. For a long moment nothing moved. The wind held its breath. Then Halcom leaned back, easing his hand from the gun. You got a lot of nerve. Eli tipped his hat. Comes with the territory. Halcom smiled again, all teeth. We'll talk later. They dragged Mercy toward the jail. The crowd followed, eager as dogs. Eli stood until they were gone, then turned back to his horse. He untied the reins with steady hands. That night the saloon glowed like a coal against the dark. Music leaked out, a fiddle sawing through a tune worn thin by use. Eli sat at a table in the corner, a whiskey untouched before him. He listened. The talk was loud, full of bravado and complaint. He caught Mercy's name once or twice, spoken with the casual cruelty of men who believed themselves untouchable. She'll fetch a good price, someone said. Eli's jaw tightened. He finished the whiskey and stood. Outside the stars were sharp, the sky immense. He walked to the jail. A single lantern burned above the door. Inside, Mercy sat on a bench, hands still bound. She looked up as he entered. They say you're trouble. Eli closed the door behind him. I ain't here to make promises. She nodded. I don't need promises. He crouched and cut the rope at her wrists. She winced, rubbing the raw skin. You got somewhere to go? He asked. She hesitated. I got nowhere. Eli considered. I got a camp a few miles out. Her eyes searched his face. Why? He shrugged. Because I can. They slipped out into the night. The horse took them away from dry wells, hooves muffled by sand. Mercy rode behind him, her hands light on his coat. The desert opened around them, vast and indifferent. At the camp, Eli built a small fire. He handed her coffee, black and bitter. They sat in silence. My husband died 2 years ago, cholera, left me with nothing. Men like Clary, they see that. Eli nodded. The world's full of men who see only what they want. She looked at him. What do you see? He stared into the fire. I see someone who shouldn't be caged. They slept little. At dawn, Eli saddled the horse again. Where are we going? Mercy asked. Someplace with fewer eyes, he said. They rode south, skirting dry wells. By noon, dust rose behind them. Riders. Eli urged the horse on, heart steady, mind clear. The chase stretched long and hard. Shots rang out, bullets winding past. Eli led them into a wash, then up into the rocks. He dismounted, handed Mercy the reins. Run when I say, he told her. Halcom's men came on, confident. Eli waited until they were close, then stepped out, gun in hand. The first shot